Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's meeting of the Council. I'm Councillor Matt Soane, Chairman of Western Furness Council. I'll be chairing the meeting today. Some brief housekeeping notices. Filming at council meetings. I'd like to remind everyone here today that photography, filming, or making audio recording of this meeting is permitted, provided this does not disrupt the meeting. I'd like to remind those filming to avoid any filming that could distract members in the course of their business, and to avoid filming or photographing members of the public who are sitting in the public gallery, which is not part of the meeting. Fire alarms, there are no fire alarms scheduled to take place today, but if one does occur, we will need to evacuate the building in a calm, orderly fashion using the nearest fire exits. Our first item of business today is the roll call, so please can I ask John Hutt from Democratic Services to carry out the roll call and notify any apologies for absence.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Archbold. Here. Councillor Sood.
Yes.
Councillor Atkinson. Here. Councillor Orland.
Present.
Councillor Baker.
Here.
Councillor Batty.
Here.
Councillor Babin.
Present.
Councillor Bell.
Here.
Councillor Biggins.
Here.
I've received apologies from Councillor Oak. Councillor Burton. Here. Councillor Deebrook. Councillor Jaybrook.
Here.
Councillor Burns.
Here.
Councillor Kelster. Councillor Carrick.
Here.
Councillor D. Cassidy.
Here.
Councillor F. Cassidy.
Here.
Councillor Chaffey.
Here.
Councillor Clark.
Here.
I've received apologies from Councillor Coles. Councillor Connell.
Here.
Councillor Cooper.
Here.
Councillor Colthwaite.
Here.
I've received apologies from Councillor Derbyshire. Councillor Dew.
Here.
Councillor Dixon. Here. Councillor Drake.
Here.
Councillor Edwards.
Here.
Councillor Ensor.
Here.
Councillor Evans.
She's just asked me to say she's been held up and apologies temporarily.
Thank you. Councillor Isles.
Here.
Councillor Fillmore.
Here.
Councillor Hall.
Here.
I've received apologies from Councillor Hamilton. Councillor Hanley.
Present.
Councillor Hensey.
Here.
Councillor Hudson.
Here.
Councillor N. Hughes.
Here.
Councillor B. Hughes.
Here.
Councillor Husband.
Present.
Councillor Irvin.
Here.
Councillor Gemma.
Present.
Councillor Jones.
Present.
Councillor Jones.
Present.
Councillor Adams. Councillor McCall.
Here.
Councillor McEwen.
Here.
Councillor Mitchell.
Present.
Councillor Morgan.
Here.
Councillor Joe Murphy.
Here.
Received apologies from Councillor Merrick. Councillor Pender.
Here.
Councillor Phillips.
Here.
Councillor Rathbone.
Present.
Councillor Robinson.
Here.
Councillor Rutball.
Here.
Councillor Sanderson.
Here.
Councillor Seven.
Here.
Received apologies from Councillor Shirley. Councillor Simpkins.
Here.
Councillor D. Taylor.
Here.
Councillor D. Taylor.
Here.
Councillor Thornton.
Here.
And received apologies from Councillor Worthington. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, John. Item 2, declarations of interest dispensation. Does any member wish to declare any interest in any of the items on the agenda today? Can't see any. So item 3, excluding the press and public. There are no items.
Item 3, there are no items on today's agenda during discussion which the press and public should be excluded as things stand. Item 4, minutes of previous meeting. Do members agree to confirm the minutes of the meeting of the council held on Thursday the 15th of June as a correct record of the meeting? Can I get a proposer, Councillor Adams, and a seconder, Councillor Babin? Can all those in favour of the minutes please indicate? And anyone who wishes to abstain, because you weren't here, and anyone who wishes to vote against the minutes. That's great. Thank you very much indeed. Item 5 is public participation. We have 3 members of the public here today. Can I just remind councillors that this item does not give rise to any debating or voting. Can I first please invite Mr. John Stunholm to step forward and put his question. Can I just remind you that you have a speaking time of 5 minutes. I want to start my clock until you come down here.
Good afternoon. Back in the late 1970s, I did a feasibility study for the Kendal Leisure Centre. When we worked that out, we thought that, well, it was going to be on Kendal School that we should put new facilities next to Quincanton. And the new facilities would be athletics track. So that is the plan that we drew up. With South Lakeland District Council, where the track should be, etc. That's the survey I did for the whole county, for every recreation facility in the county. My speech, it's a proposal for a 400-metre, 6-lane synthetic athletics track. My glasses on, writing. In 2008, I first put forward this in the local plan review, with the support of Kendal Athletics Club. And in 1979, we were working as a principal officer for sport and recreation in the county council. I proposed and supervised a survey of all the formal recreation facilities in the country. I identified standards of provision which ought to apply. As far as athletics is concerned, synthetic tracks were proposed for Carlisle, Barrow, West Cumbria and Kendal. This proposal was adopted by the County Council, the Strategic Planning Authority, and recommended to the District Councils, Carlisle, to the District Councils. Carlisle, Barrow and West Cumbria have all had synthetic tracks for many years. Kendal is the only settlement without a track. The track proposed for Kendal would have 6 lanes with an 8-lane straight, would face in the southwest to northeast direction, to give athletes the advantage of the prevailing wind along the straight. There will be facilities for all the field sports and a soccer pitch in the middle, as well as a lack of soccer pitches in town. In the local track, the track was proposed on the land north of the tennis club on Appleby Road, opposite Queen Catherine School. The concept plan that I've shown you, prepared by the District Council, is shown in front of you. You will see that the plan allows for residential development and public open space. The current use is as a touring caravan site. The uses proposed for the whole site would make the land more valuable. Discussions regarding purchase would need to take place with the landowner, but if necessary, compulsory purchase powers would need to be used. Thank you. I can take this on. You've all seen it. I can take it away. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stunholm. Thank you for taking the time to speak to us today. Can I invite Margaret Belk to step forward and address the council, which I believe is on a similar matter, and then the leader of the council will respond to both questions at once, if that's okay. And once again, you have 5 minutes to address the council. And, maybe
Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity. Again, some of you may remember that I did give a presentation to the last meeting of South Lakeland District Council in March. I'm here basically to say the same thing, that if Kendal had an athletics facility, what would we gain? Well, the first thing is that an athletics facility needs to be on the local plan. In the unlikely event, and I can see that it probably is unlikely, that funding became available, it would have to be on the local plan to get the go-ahead from athletics as a national body. So what I'm asking today is not going to cost you any money. All I'm asking is that you include an athletics facility in the next writing of the local plan, and John's presentation has suggested a site. Athletics makes a massive contribution to health and well-being, so there's a council box to tick. The competitions bring in visitors. Six teams of 15 athletes, 90 people coming into Kendal. A lot of them stay. I'm also connected with local hockey clubs. Generally speaking, the teams in the northwest, when they come to play here, they come and stay overnight. They also bring with them spectators and lots of opportunities then for tourism to sit alongside sport. But what I really want to emphasise is the opportunities for success. Last time I quoted one of our coaches. She was a very talented multi-event athlete, but there were no facilities for her to train and she gave up. I brought her children along with me last time. They're at school today. But this is Peter. He's the same age as our athletic club. And he gets the same buzz out of being part of it. Where they train, at the moment, our headquarters is at the Queen Catherine School. There are no lights. So we have an average of about 60 people on a Tuesday night. Our coach brings along a small generator with some small spotlights, and that's where we train. That's just for the runners. There is nothing for the jumpers and throwers. We have a very talented young lady who was third in the National Schools multi-events this summer. She has to go to Warrington to do her throws coaching. That's how far our athletes travel. She actually lives in Ulverston and travels to Lancaster and to Kendal to train twice a week. Once to Lancaster, once to Kendal. So that's the opportunity for success. We host our home fixtures at either Blackburn or Blackpool. The South Lakeland Schools Athletics Championships takes place at Blackpool. How many of our local children have to be bused to Blackpool to compete? How many parents get the opportunity to support them? Not very many. If it's not on the plan, just consider please what we would lose. Because what I want, what I believe in passionately, is that we give our young people the opportunity to shine. But also, it's across the generations, which is why I brought Peter this afternoon to show you, to demonstrate that athletics is a very inclusive sport. There is something there for everyone, but we have no facility. I repeat, all I want us to do is to have it included in the local plan. I'm not asking for money because there isn't any. We don't even have a site that's dedicated. But if it isn't in the local plan, it can't happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Bell. We really appreciate you taking the time to come and speak to us today. So thank you very much, and thank you also to Mr. Stiller as well. I'd just like to invite the council if you want to respond to these questions raised by the members.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, and thank you for the questions, and great to hear your presentations and see the enthusiasm that you have for your sport. So, what I can say is that Westmorland Furness Council will be starting to develop a sport and leisure strategy later this year. The strategy will provide this council with a clear, strategic and sustainable approach when developing future capital projects for sport and leisure, and will ensure that future investments into such facilities are effective. We welcome all local clubs and residents to be part of this work, and with your permission would welcome your input into it. Clearly, healthy and happy lives are a key priority within our council plan. We recognise that all sports provision and clubs through the facilities for events play a huge role in Westmorland Furness, and we greatly value the importance and difference this makes to residents' lives and health and well-being, as you have made reference to in your speech earlier. Moving to the local plan issue, although there is no requirement or site allocated, as you mentioned, for an athletics track in the current South Lakeland local plan, this council will shortly be embarking on the preparation of a new local plan for the whole of Westmorland and Furness, including this area. As part of that plan, I can inform you that a playing pitch strategy is currently being undertaken by Tetra Tech and SP Consultants. And that study is looking at evidence of need for outdoor sports facilities, including a range of sports: football, rugby, tennis, hockey, bowls, archery, golf, athletics, and cricket. Part of this process is to liaise with relevant national and local sporting bodies, and this will specifically include all local athletics clubs, including your own clearly, and national governing bodies, including England Athletics. When developed, the new strategy will inform our future local plan, policies and allocations, and provide the basis for decisions relating to investment and improvement of outdoor sports facilities right across the whole of Westmorland and Furness. So I hope, therefore, that this will provide the reassurance that you're looking for at this time. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One more from the public here, so can I invite please Mr. John Davis to step up for the question, and again we have 5 minutes.
Thank you. The Local Transparency Code promotes democratic accountability and makes it easier for local people to contribute to local decision-making process. The Transparency Code sets out the minimum data that the local authority should be publishing, the frequency it should be published, and how it should be published. Westmorland and Furness Council, via its own website, states the council is committed to making its finances clear so everybody can see exactly how the money is being spent. Part of this commitment to provide financial transparency, Westmorland and Furness Council will publish all expenditure for over £250, excluding VAT, is what's stated on the slide. Yet this council has existed as a local authority since the 1st of April 2023. Today marks 173 days, or 520 days, Westmorland and Furness Council has had a duty to publish its expenditure and spending on procurement cards. Today, at the time of sending this question in, the Council has failed to publish any required data under the Transparency Code. Could the leader please explain why the Westmorland and Furness Council failed to disclose its expenditure to date for public scrutiny? What is the Council covering up with the lack of transparency on expenditure?
Thank you, Mr. Davis. I can invite Councillor to reply.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for your question and for your interest in the activities and operations of Westmorland and Furness Council. I can assure you that Westmorland and Furness Council, we are committed to providing open and transparent data. We do this to demonstrate the ethical values that underpin Westmorland and Furness Council and to comply with the Local Government Transparency Code. So, to ensure that payments to customers, clients and businesses were uninterrupted during the period of transition, the Council made a decision to operate multiple payment systems for April, May and June. I think this highlights, in a small way perhaps, significant challenges that have been faced by this Council in transitioning from the 4 previous sovereign authorities, and that the amount of work involved in that process should not be overlooked. So, the payments made in all of those systems have been downloaded and prepared for publication. Our officers have been working on the way that we make our data freely available to everyone in a format that can be reused. There has been a delay in commencing the publication of transparency data, and the reason for that is some of the technical issues that I have made reference to, those needed to be resolved. However, I can report that the April figures are now published on our website. The May and June data will be published later this week, and future months will be published in a timely manner.
Mr. Davis, did you have a supplementary question?
I think the leader for the reply to my question. I know that the council has published some of the data for April and as of today also the June spending. The published spending report by the council lists the trade payments of Westmorland Furness Council as an accurate public account report under the Local Government Transparency Code. It's an accurate accounting report of the council spending in April and June 2022. Could the leader please explain how Westmorland Furness Council has made almost £50,000 of payments in April and further £8,000 in June to a limited company? The company's house show was dissolved in January 2019.
Okay, so thank you for that question. Clearly, that information has only just been published on our website, so I have no knowledge of any detail in relation to that. I will happily provide you with a written answer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Davis. Moving forward to item 6, announcements. Members have already received details of engagement for both myself and the Chair was taken since the previous council meeting. These are the second email, although I would just like to apologise to members in Barrow. Illness prevented me on the day from attending the mayor meeting in Barrow. I'm sorry about that. However, you wouldn't thank me if I give it all to you. I would not be a way to start your civic year, so I'm sorry I wasn't there. Can I also congratulate, on behalf of the council, the England Lionesses for their fantastic achievement in reaching the final, and in particular, Georgia Stanwyck, who hails, of course, from Dalton Furness, an absolute hero. So I just want to congratulate them on behalf of the council for doing so very well, and it's also very proud. Would the leader of the council like to make any announcements?
Please, if I may, Chair. So, as we've already heard this afternoon, we are less than 6 months old as a brand new council. There continues to be a huge amount of work being done, much of it behind the scenes, to deliver business as usual, whilst reshaping our council services, building our new team, and consolidating the operations and finances of our previous sovereign councils. So, I want to thank again officers who are doing a great job under immense pressure. We've seen and heard recently how things can go spectacularly wrong, and the fate of Birmingham City Council is the latest example in this regard. So we continue to strive to be a provider of excellent value for money services right across the diverse geographic footprint that is Westmorland Furness Council. I hope members and the wider public can see evidence of this, both on the ground and in our council and cabinet papers on our agenda today, for example. Cabinet has looked at new policies for disposals and community asset transfers, investment in council plan priorities. Part 1 of our climate change action plan, locality boards, school admissions arrangements, and children's social care and development plans, and our exciting scheme to build and operate a 2 megawatt solar farm at Sandscale Park in Barrow. These are significant steps forward. Of course, there are teething problems, and we've heard some of those also. We don't get everything right all the time, and we can improve, and we remain committed to doing so in line with our council plan priorities and our new delivery framework, which is on our agenda today. So, I would want to also make reference to ongoing training, and there's been a whole raft of training opportunities. That is an important part of our journey, and we all need to be upskilled in various different areas. As a unitary authority, we've got a tremendous range of services, and it's incumbent upon all of us as members to become as aware as we can be of the details of those. I want to ask members particularly to bear in mind our forthcoming training session on the 2nd of October regarding race and equality training. It's an important session. and based on past personal experience, should be a very positive and engaging session. So thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor Brooke. And do any members of the Cabinet wish to make any announcements? Councillor Thorns.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Chair, earlier this week I was asked if I had any announcements at Council. We just had the members' call on highways. I thought we covered everything, so I said no. But since then we've had a thing called weather. As the advert says, not just any weather, but Cumbrian weather. Now members, well, Cumbrian, that's the county. But obviously Western first. You've all had the update from Dan Chalmers, haven't you, about what's been going on, so I won't repeat all that. But I was just thinking, while we were all in bed, listening to the rain, hammering off the windows and all tucked up, our highways people were out there, our teams were out there. They were clearing fallen trees, they were unblocking gullies, and they were checking bridges, all while we were asleep. And they've done a tremendous job, keeping us safe, keeping the area moving. And I think members, I'm sure you would all want me to convey our thanks to all our teams. So Angela, could you pass that message on from all members that we are truly grateful for what they've done there on the front line. I want to say something though on the subject of drains. I've had quite a lot of messages, not all from Ulverston, but quite a lot, Jackie, about drains, etc. And I know our teams have been out there and they've been helping out there. So blocked drains contribute to flooding, and flooding blocks drains. Chicken and egg, or egg or chicken. And when the water goes down, it's not always clear which one of those came first. I would ask members not to leap to conclusions about that. We have about 74,000 drains in Western Furness. 74,000 in total. And we do try to keep them all clear all year round. We have regular visits to known trouble spots and areas where we know there are issues with drain capacity. And the issues in Ulverston was partly due to drain capacity simply being overwhelmed. But we do rely on residents and members to let us know when there's a blocked drain in your area. And my plea to you all is, please let us know about the blocked drains before it rains. Now, our highway service has an absolute commitment to clear any blocked drain, and this is irrespective of any budget considerations. We will never say we haven't got the budget to clear a drain. If it's blocked, we'll clear it. Now, there is a slight caveat. If it's a collapsed drain that needs excavation, needs a road or something like that, there are sometimes prioritisation considerations to take into account. But when it's simply blocked with gravel or leaves, we will clear it. Now, maybe not the next day. It may take a week or so, but we will clear that drain. So, my guarantee to you really is if you report a blocked drain, and if it isn't cleared in a reasonable time, let me know, or let your highways officer know. Send me the email you got from Highlands, send it to me, and we will make sure it is cleared. So please help us clear those drains before it rains, as the saying goes. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much indeed, Councillor Thorns. Any other members of the Cabinet wish to make any announcements? I can't say one. Okay. Peter, can you just not go the microphone? Thank you. Okay, moving on. Then item 7 is minutes of the Cabinet. So I'd just like to ask the Leader of the Council to present the draft minutes of the Cabinet meetings from the 6th of June, 11th of July and 12th of September.
Thank you, Chair. I'm quite happy to simply move those minutes. I've made reference to some of the activities that Cabinet has been involved with and decisions that have been made in those Cabinet meetings. So people have hopefully had the opportunity of reading those minutes, and may well be the questions are forthcoming. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now I'm going to allow up to 30 minutes for members to ask questions on the minutes. Can I please ask that members who have a question indicate quite clearly the minute number and page number to which your question relates? So Councillor Hennessy first, and we'll get on.
Thank you, Chair. A question for Councillor Archibald pertaining to item 7B 35 on page 39 of the agenda. The Council has published part 1 of its climate action plan, which at the time when several other parties are trashing their plans on the environment is very welcome. But can you tell us more about the progress on part 2, and in particular the progress on awarding grants and partnerships in the area who will be vitalising tackling climate change?
Yeah, no, thank you very much indeed for that question. And if I may, I'll just preface my answer by reminding members about news which we received this week. This week, the BBC, in a report, described scientific research which indicated that the dreadful floods in Libya, which caused so many deaths, were exacerbated by climate change. They also described how the flooding in Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria, that caused deaths, was exacerbated by climate change. They described how, as you know, deaths in India, deaths in France, are directly associated with the heat that can be ascribed to climate change. And indeed, in our own country, a parliamentary committee just very recently stated that there were likely 3,000 excess deaths in 2022 as a result of the extreme heat. Now, Mr. Chairman, and in answering this question, I would, if I may, just make this point. It's ironic that on the very week when we receive absolute confirmation of the deadly, and I mean deadly, effect of climate change, we have an announcement from government that they are pulling back on their climate commitments. This is shameful. It is shameful, it is disgraceful, and we in Westmorland and Furness, we must redouble our efforts. And thank you for the question, Councillor. Forgive me if I get a little emotional, because I have children, I have grandchildren, and this is their future that we're talking about. And to pull back on your pledges, the symbolic nature of pulling back on your pledges is disgraceful, shameful, it's awful. But we in Westmorland and Furness, we are determined to push ahead. In fact, redouble our efforts. So, as we said in previous documents, in the current papers, we will be producing part 2 of the Climate Action Plan before the end of the year. We'll also be producing a biodiversity loss paper, an action plan in the coming months thereafter. But we are getting on and doing things already. We are moving towards decarbonising our own estate. We are looking to see how we can spend millions on implementing or installing EV charging points. Under Councillor Thornton's leadership, we are building a solar farm. We will be planting trees, and as you mentioned, Councillor Hennessy, we will be giving grants. We've gone out to the community, and I want to commend officers for the speed in which they have done this. We've gone out to the community to partnerships that can deliver action now that will impact climate change, will help climate change. And we've gone out to those partnerships and asked them to come in with bids as to what they can do in the coming months. And we've got bids of over £1.5 million that are coming. And we won't be able to meet all of those grants, but we will be able to meet, hopefully, the majority of them. And we will be sharing with councillors what we decide around these grants. But this is something that we are definitely going to do, and we will be completing on these grant awards in the very next few weeks. This council can't solve the problem of climate change, but we can be part of the solution, and we're determined so to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Archibald. I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 hands raised. Councillor Jim, please. Don't worry, we'll come to it.
Thank you, Chair. My
question, well, I've got two really, you can take them all on block if you need. First to Cabinet minutes of the 6th of June, minutes 18, pages 2021. My question to the Cabinet member for Highways and Assets Council Authority. Quite coincidentally, at that meeting, the chair of Clifton Community Council, Jonathan Davis, who we heard from this afternoon, asked a question about, it says street lighting, but it meant footway lighting, and the unresolved issues resulting from Eden District Council's confused policy. This is a concern in many communities across Eden, where parish councils took devolved responsibility for footway lighting, as Councillor Thornton knows. The question to Councillor Thornton is, when will Westmorland and Furness bring in its own policy for footway lighting so that there is clarity and uniformity across the three former districts? So I think that's really important. And my second shorter question is to the leader of the council, refers to the minutes of the council on the 12th of September, minute 49, pages 7 to 8. The minute refers to the development of a grant policy to ensure consistency, transparency and fairness across the authority. And these are things that I've mentioned on several occasions, how important that is. And that's essential to avoid chaos and confusion across Westmorland and Furness. When will this long overdue policy be complete? That's my second question. Thank you ever so much, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Would you like to respond?
Well, thanks, Phil, for the question. We've discussed this a bit, as you know. There are several issues here. I think the first issue is, I think we'd have to acknowledge that district councils themselves didn't always have a fully worked out policy that had been brought into action for streetlights. And I know from my area of Kendal, for example, as a past leader of SLDC, I know the issues. And it's about consistency, it's about relationships with parishes. And when people say, well, why do we maintain that light and not that one? Sometimes you have a job to find out the actual reason. And I think all of the districts were coming to a point of getting to some clarity about this when LGR came along. And all of a sudden, we've got 4 different policies all colliding. And you find the light and you say, who owns that? In some cases, it's the household, it's on the end of the garage. In other cases, it's a housing association. In some cases, it's the parish. In some cases, it was the district council, or was the county council. And in some cases, no one has any idea. And it's a real job to pull all this together. So at the moment, our commitment is that if the district council had given a commitment, we will honour that commitment. And that might be different in one district than another. But if Eden District Council, for example, has said, and it clearly said, it's documented, we will maintain that light, the Westmorland and Furness will maintain that light. And that might be different in say, Curtis, Stephen and Kendal, because that's the history of it. But you'll notice I'm cleverly avoiding your real question, which is when are we going to sort it? And the answer is as soon as possible, but it won't be by Christmas. I'm hoping we can get some clarity sometime next year. But as you're going to hear probably more than once, there's an awful lot on. And we've got to look at where the priorities are. And generally speaking, most of the lighting is actually being dealt with. If a light's out, we'll find a way of getting it on. So there are some priorities that might be higher than this. But in the meantime, when it's not dealt with, same with the drains really. If you've got a light in your area, no one can find out who it belongs to, and it's simply out, or it's damaged, or whatever. And if you can't get any clarity, email me, and we'll try and sort it out. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Oh, the second question. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Dew. So your question relates to our council and statement in Cabinet papers there that we are developing targeted programmes to distribute grants to support and invest in local activity consistent with our priorities. And I'm glad that we agree, or we seem to agree, on the need for such grants, and that any process in administering them should be transparent and with very clear guidelines. In respect of, again, a specific question regarding a date, when can we expect that? It's my understanding that officers hope to bring policy to Cabinet early in the new year, possibly in February, and hopefully then we can agree on all of those details that we talked about.
Thank you very much. Councillor McEwen next, please. Don't worry, I've got no deadline, so we'll get right.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, my it's agenda item 7A and it's item number 22 on page 22 and it's directed to Councillor Hughes. It's on the investment things about the A2B now card. It's not for me, I'm asking this information, I don't know what it so as you can see. What it is, a resident approached me, a grandfather, and he has 3 grandchildren. And he went to make inquiries about this A2B card at the library. And there was no information that they could give him one, it only what was on the card, pay £10, blah, blah, blah. Now, his queries are, he's got 3 grandchildren who he takes on regular things, trips to Carlisle, and he's got to get 3 buses. Now, it's not a free bus, this A2B, is it? It's a discount on fares. Now, what he's asking is it 3 buses, as he want to get 3 different fares, or as he just go for the one bus and say, I'm going to Carlisle and he gets it discounted. Now, nobody could give him this information, so he come to me as his councillor. Now, the thing is, he phoned up Kendal, they knew nothing about it, they didn't give him the information. He phoned Stagecoach, they were the same, so he came to me and asked me. So I'm asking for some information on this to feed back to them. You might not be able to give it at the moment to you, but if you can get some information, I can feed back to them, or get some information to these people, the library, the Kendal, the Stagecoach, or whoever, in case they get phone calls again. Thank you.
Oh, thanks very much for the question and for giving notice as well. So the Western Furness Council A2B card has funding of £70,000 in the current financial year, stated that was it page 23. Yes, I think it's page 23. This scheme is an extension of one operated by the previous South Lakeland, the local committee in South Lakeland of the County Council to provide off-peak travel, subsidised, reduced price off-peak travel to young people, and it's very successful. So we're extending it. Now I do apologise immediately that this information was not available in Barrow Library, of course we wrote it. I will speak to officers straight after the meeting to ensure that that information is made available, although I did understand it would be widely circulated, so obviously there have been some omissions for which I do apologise. My understanding is that the reduced £1.80 fare per journey applies to each individual journey. So if the young people you're referring to were making 3 journeys, then we would have to pay that amount 3 times. But obviously that would still be much cheaper than paying the full fare. Well, it's interesting putting this aside the £2 fare. The £2 fare is also the cap on fares going to £2.50 in November is also a temporary arrangement. And it's up to the government really to provide funding to keep both going if that's the wish, because we rely as a council for our funding partly on government support. But there has been initial take-up of the card. It probably hasn't been as high as might have been anticipated, but this is partly as a result of the £2 current cap. It's very much anticipated that as the card becomes more widely known, hopefully filtered through libraries, then take-up will be greater. But in the current circumstance, where the government is artificially actually suppressing fares without at all a proper policy for developing bus services in the council areas around the country, then inevitably there will be some competition. Many will benefit from the £2 fare, but I hope also similarly that many will benefit from our Western Furness A to B task. I'll get that information out as soon as possible.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Hughes. Councillor Phillips, next, please.
Thank you very much. I think the question I want to ask refers to Councillor Archibald's earlier comment around the climate action, page 22, page 23 minute 26. The Council has allocated £500,000 of the Climate Action Fund as aligned to Cabinet's £500 worth of priorities. And whilst the climate challenge impacts all of us, why have we decided to distribute this fund to already established SMEs, which will meet the strict criteria on the Climate Action Fund, rather than meet the ambition of the Council to become a leader in climate change and kind of centrally led Westmorland Furness climate change policies that we can lead and deliver across the wider Westmorland Furness areas, rather than targeting already established SMEs.
Councillor Archibald, did you wish to respond?
Very simply because, if I may, the challenges that we face are such that we need partners, we need partnerships, we need to work with other groups that can indeed implement strategies immediately, have the resources to implement strategies in terms of manpower, knowledge, background, but don't necessarily have the funds. So, for example, let's take an example of peat restoration. I don't know if you're familiar with the situation of peat in Cumbria. It's a disaster. 95% of peat is degraded. Peat, as you know, when it's degraded, it releases carbon. When it's healthy, it absorbs carbon. So it is an urgent matter for us to look at whether there are ways in which we can help restore peat. And for that, we need partners. We need people who are going to be able to help us restore peat, the significant number of hectares of peat we have in this area. You know very well, as I'm sure you do, the state of our rivers. It is an absolute disgrace that one of our rivers is in the top 10 of the rivers that are most polluted in the country. We need to address that. We need to address that quickly. We don't have the resources among the officers to address that quickly. We need partners. We need other people to work with. And I could go on. The list is quite long of the things that need doing. And that's why we're co-opting partners to work with us. And that's why we want to distribute grants to these partners so that they can enhance their work, speed up what they're doing, expand the scope of what they're doing. And they will be doing it, I'm sure, under our very careful watchful eye. We will be very careful in monitoring that they achieve what they want to achieve. But the task in front of us is enormous, and we've got to get on with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Archibald. And next now, Councillor Drake, please.
Thank you, Chair. So page 35 to 36, Capital Programme, minute 34. Could I please ask the leader to place on record a commitment that the Council will be bringing Ulverston Library building up to a safe electrical standard and to get our much loved library building open for the public to continue to use? Is the planned work in the Capital Programme? Thank you.
Okay, thank you for the question. And clearly, Ulverston Library is very important to communities in that part of our area. As you will no doubt be aware, that officers have been working on a pop-up library service, and that should, as of today, be up and running. I think there was a news release, a press release put out on this subject. So I won't repeat what is in there. In respect of capital programme, just would like to say that thus far, officers have been focused on getting the service back up and running to meet the clear need in the Ulverston area. I think it's fair to say that good progress, hopefully you agree, has been made in that regard in respect of those library services. The next question, therefore, does turn to, well, what is the long-term options and solution in respect of the library? And again, officers will be undertaking a full assessment, and we will be taking guidance from the relevant professionals before coming to a decision about the future of those premises. But what I can provide reassurance about very clearly is that we are committed to the delivery of services from the library, and again, only at the weekend we had the very pleasant opportunity of, with Councillor Taylor, reopening the refurbished Kendal library, and so we would look forward to the day that we can offer library services from appropriate premises in the Ulverston area.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Burton, next please.
Yeah, thank you. My question relates to minute 56 of the September cabinet meeting on pages 15 and 17. It's in regards to the announcement at that meeting that the necessary decisions were taken to move to the next timetable phase of development for the urban scheme at the 595 Lapdale Ford, where Councillor Thornton confirmed that the powers to make land purchases and stop existing highways were approved. Can Councillor Thornton please give my residents, and indeed all those who are interested in this much needed road improvement scheme, that this new authority remains unwavering in its commitment to see the scheme delivered on time and onwards.
I can indeed. I went to look at it actually the other day, and it was, this is a Chrysler, isn't it? Yeah. And it's quite interesting, in that short stretch, I was following a fairly nervous driver, and they stopped 4 times in a standard car, let the car go the other way, which I think made the point about that stretch. Clearly, it doesn't measure up to the rest of the road. But we have a clear ambition, which we inherited from the County Council, to sort this. And I think the fact that we're taking this forward, the fact that we're still spending money on this, Westmorland Furness money has been spent on this, shows our ambition for this. It does need the government to accept the business case, and it needs the government to fully fund this. And that's the key thing. Westmorland Furness is not the size of council that can fund those sorts of road schemes. This is for the government to fund. But we're doing our bit on this. We're developing it. We're taking it to the next stage. We're inheriting all the design work that the County Council has done. And clearly we want this to happen. And we do hope that all the attention that we're getting in this area through Team Barrow will help with this. Because that's a clear part of the infrastructure that goes up the coast from Barrow to the coast. And when Barrow develops as we see it happening in the next few years, there's going to be clearly a lot more traffic up and down there. So hopefully that reassures you. But if you've got any contacts in government, we need the cash. Thank you.
I can just, on that point.
No, sorry. We haven't got time for this question. We only have 8 minutes left on this item. So I need short questions and short answers so we can get through. Next, can I have Councillor Irving, please?
Thank you. Just on the library, just a quick one. I hope that this will be looked at.
Sorry, is that? Do you have the minutes? Do you have the reference that you're referring to?
Yes, sorry, it was in the library.
Do you have the specific minute reference? It's not a general question time. You need to refer to a particular minute. Or is it the same one as Councillor Drake?
Yes,
thank you. Thank you. Just to be clear, thank you. Karen.
Well, just quick. This library is urgently needs to be back up and running. It's a very, very valuable place. It's not only a library, it's for people, vulnerable people that go there, and also it's banks in there, people, there's nothing being put in place about this bank. So we could look at it very quickly.
Have you got a question at the end of that?
Yeah, I'd just like to say, question is, how long will it take?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, I refer to my previous answer, and I'm not in a position, I don't believe anyone is at this moment in time to give you a definitive answer to that question, but clearly we're working very hard, and as soon as we are able to provide that information, we will.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Hughes now. Murphy. So, I'm so sorry. I wrote Hughes. Councillor Murphy.
Yes, it's on the same topic, page 35, minute 34. But I'm asking a question regarding Roos Library. Obviously, you realise there are difficulties with that at the present time. Roos is one of the most used libraries in the county. We were given some reassurances in June that it would be looked at with some urgency, and we've had no feedback since. Could I please ask that that's Minister that I've made a query about that? Thank you.
Okay, yeah, happy to provide a written answer. I don't have any information to hand on that, but we will get that information to you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Murphy. If you could just pop your microphone off. Councillor Atkinson.
It's just a very quick one. Just referring to the meeting on the 12th of September, in writing code 51, page 149. Can the portfolio holders explain how the Cabinet will define a special purchaser, as mentioned on page 167 of the property disposal policy? In what circumstances will a council-owned property be sold as undervalued? Also, exactly what criteria will the council consider before deciding to approve the sale of a council-owned property for less than the best consideration reasonably possible? Can I also seek assurance?
So is this relating to the minutes of the 12th of September?
It is, yes.
Thank you.
Yeah. The meeting of the 12th of September. Can I also take assurances from the council that all property disposed of by this council will be sold in the best interests of the people of Westmorland and Furness, and a special consideration will be given to disposal of buildings of particular significance and relevance, such as our 3 iconic town halls, this beautiful county hall, our many heritage assets, 19 libraries, etc. By special consideration, I mean that any decision to dispose of these much-loved and cherished symbols of our history and regional identity with the full backing of this council, and more importantly, the consent of the local community.
Thank you.
Yeah, I can't find any council representative that. I will give you the response. I think it's interesting actually with the previous 2 questions as well. We have a commitment as a council to deliver services. That doesn't always translate to a commitment to keep buildings. I think it's important that we recognise that. Now, as you say, there are some buildings that are much loved, and sometimes they come into a different category. You said, can we commit to, I think you asked me to commit not to sell things that are undervalued. Was that?
No, I said what criteria would be used to undervalue.
Right. I mean, I think it's all in the document, it's all in the policy. The policy went through a lot of process to get to here. And if you've got any individual questions about individual buildings, come and talk to me later. And that applies to Councillor Berrington as well, by the way, about your supplementary on Grisbeck. But in the end, our commitment is to services, not to buildings. And I'm really careful to say that because as a council, we have too many buildings. We can't afford to keep them all going, or we're going to have to look at the process of consolidation. And that's not aimed at any particular building, so please don't, leap to conclusions. But services is what we're about. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for all of your questions. We finished that item back on time, so I really appreciate everyone's cooperation in making that happen. Item 8 is questions by members, and the wording of that is: do any members have a question to the leader, relevant member of the cabinet or chair committee? A question about there's an item of the report or upon the minutes of a meeting of the relevant body when the item is being received or under consideration by this council. Has anyone got a question on under this item. Councillor Brereton first. I'll take you first, Councillor Brereton, as you were so patient in waiting.
Yeah, this is a question, I think, please, to Councillor Hughes. It regards the sort of knock-on effect of the recent award of school bus contracts. We, in my ward, have a very welcome move from Stagecoach to reintroduce a version of the X7 service that was withdrawn in direct consequence of them having lost previously the school bus contract. The difficulty arises, and this is where my question comes in, is that in the intervening period, the local community operator has actually gone out to operate what I'm calling a sort of resilience or community route. It's only 2 days a week. It's still called the X7, and it does connect many communities that were affected by the withdrawal of the original Stagecoach service. How can we, as an authority, going forward, develop policies that, number one, prevent negative impact in terms of competition for passenger numbers when a service is reintroduced, and make sure that those services dovetail in with existing or reintroduced community routes? And also, how can we try and ensure that where a commercial operator does seek to introduce or significantly alter provision of service, that they are not able to subsequently withdraw these on a whim, as has happened in the past?
Councillor Brereton.
We'll just to hear from the monitor first, and then just Councillor Hughes.
Yeah, it's just really, we're obviously a new council and we're working through a lot of the new rules, I think it's fair to say, and we do have a provision which allows for questions on the minutes and also questions on any reports before us as a council. The rules around the other questions that can be asked on anything else is around the rules around giving notice of that question, and there are rules within the Constitution about those timescales. So while we are obviously working flexibly and linking questions to matters that are on the agenda, it would be really helpful if members could identify either the minutes as we've just done or the actual reports that you're linking the matter to. I think the chair is being quite lenient in terms of for members at this meeting, but I think for future meetings we will work with group leaders on that.
Yeah, I mean, we're still finding our way, but if people could find a way to get notice to officers before, then you can get a more detailed reply as well. But you've asked your question, Councillor, and I will allow Councillor Hughes to answer it.
Thanks, Chair. Thanks to the monitoring officer for that explanation. I'm very happy to attempt an answer. I will get you a fuller written answer. I don't know the individual circumstances of the X7. So first of all, I'm a little surprised, Councillor Brereton, that you're worried by the prospect of competition, because my understanding is that the entire basis of the way bus services operate in this country is based on competition introduced through bus deregulation by a Conservative government in the 1980s. It's not necessarily the way that local authorities would wish to see buses commissioned and operate. Nevertheless, in terms of the question, it's welcome that a service has been, a commercial service has been reintroduced on the back of a school service. Community groups, as you rightly point out, often step into the breach and have done very diligently with a great effect in the last few years since, again, unfortunately, government funding was considerably reduced during the 2010 onwards period. And their efforts are appreciated and local people very much benefit from these services. My previous experience is that where a commercial service was reintroduced, the interim, community providers very gallantly stepped away and allowed the commercial service to operate. Because they don't have to do that, because as I just indicated, the ethos of bus operation in our country still, I say this with some regret, is open competition rather than actually utilising the available buses and the available staff for the best strategic bonuses. I say I don't know any details of the precise situation you described, so it would be rash for me to comment on that specifically, but you get the general principle. All bus companies have a part to play. Westmorland Furness Council encourages them to do whatever they can to meet the need in the public, but I wouldn't want to see services running unnecessarily. However, it is up to the individual providers to determine whether they continue the service or they cease.
Just on context, point of context, I'll just say that this is a rising matter that's been dealt with mainly through the locality board, which is what I thought I'd bring it today. However, I just have been invited to a meeting, sort of briefing about this next week, so I will endeavour to provide council who's with as much background information in a specific case, but obviously it feeds into the wider strategic policy that we've generated. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Bowson next, please.
Thank you, Chair. A question to Councillor Peter Thornton, Cabinet Member for Highways, especially in relation to being chairman in the recent Strategic Highways Board, when we were looking at the 20-mile-an-hour policy. Can I ask how the process for 20-mile-an-hour speed limits can get started? I'm being asked it by various parish council meetings that I go to, and in particular, those villages that do not currently have a speed limit other than the national 60-mile-an-hour speed limit, and I'm interested in slowing traffic down to 20 miles an hour. What should they do? Because it would seem not to apply to them, even though they meet the rest of the criteria, especially not having footpaths. So first of all, how do parish councils and local people get the 20 mile an hour speed limit process started? And what can be done for villages where they only have a national speed limit? Thank you.
Very pertinent question, actually, because I'm sure you've all been watching what's happening in Wales, and the huge outcry against it until there's a poll just come out that says that the majority of Welsh people are actually for it, which is quite interesting, and it's quite possible to be deflected sometimes by noisy groups, isn't it? So our process really is to start at the other end. I'm not saying what Wales is doing is right or wrong, but we're not doing it that way. We're not sort of changing all our 30s to 20. When I was a county councillor, we often had people come and say, we want 20 miles an hour in our village. And the county council was pretty good at giving them the reasons why it couldn't happen. And the basic reason it couldn't happen, which was along with advice from government, so it wasn't just the county council being awkward. It was because the traffic had to be travelling at 20 miles an hour before you could ask it to travel at 20 miles an hour. I always thought that was somewhat illogical. And so it meant physical traffic calming, etc. Now that advice has now changed, and that's why we brought in our policy of looking at sign-only schemes. So, Councillor Mackley, the question was, what's the first step? The first step is to ascertain that the representatives of the parish want us to look at this. So in practice, that's the parish or town council. And if the parish or town council comes to us and says, will you look at it with us, talk to us about it, explain what it would mean, and then let's go to the next step. And the next step is a consultation in the community to make sure that the parish council are actually representing the whole community. And it's not just a couple of people in a side room with an obsession about 20 miles an hour. It's important that we get to those steps. I'm looking at Councillor Dew when I said that, and he's smiling at me. Your meeting's in a couple of weeks, I believe. I won't be there, but I'll be interested to see how it goes. The question, though, is a really pertinent one about can you go from 60 to 20? Because clearly in Wales, they're going to be doing that. But the advice to the DfT at the moment in England is no. And the advice is to have a buffer zone. So if you go to 60 now, the advice is that you need to put a 30 or 40 in before you had a 20 in board of that. But my advice is talk to the officers, because this is changing all the time. Everyone's watching Wales to see what happens and to see how it works there. So talk to officers, get your parish council to contact the officers via yourself, and then we'll come and have a conversation with you, and you can bring up all these issues then. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Dew.
What a delight. You'd be disappointed to know, Councillor Thornton, that I was going to ask a question about 20 miles per hour. Chair, I'm resisting the temptation. But I would refer the Councillor to the circular that you quote in that strategic board meeting 01/2013 on the 20 mile per hour speed limits. But anyway, I'm going to ask a question to Councillor Thornton about the A66 MTP project. Councillor Thornton very kindly visited our ward recently on the back of that and asking this question. I think you prompted me to ask this question, to be fair. So this project is £1.2 billion worth of project, and it's due to start in 2024. To date, no mitigations have been agreed or put in place to counter the impact of construction works on the main diversion routes, one of which runs through Kirby Stephen on the A685. National Highways is in fact insisting that the during project won't actually have any impact on the diversion routes at all, which I think is very short-sighted. So my question to Councillor Thornton is, will you undertake to do everything in your power to ensure that appropriate mitigations are incorporated into the project before it begins? And before Councillor Thornton answers, because I won't have a chance to say that, can I compliment the Councillor on his knowledge of his brief and his commitment and enthusiasm to engage with the communities, which I think is exemplary. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Dew. It's always nice to visit Kirby Stephen.
Always welcome.
I mean, anywhere with 3 chip shops has got something like the answer to your question is yes. Clearly, I know Kirby Stephen, I know the issues there, I know the issues with the Narrows and South Road, and if the substantial amount of traffic was to come from there, diverted from the A66, it would cause a problem. Now, to be blunt, National Highways' job is to build the A66 or the improvements, and basically our job is to cope with the consequences. And that is sort of legally where it is. Now, obviously, we're pushing them to try and help with the mitigation. There is a little bit of good news. I believe recently there was a planned closure, wasn't there, at night?
Yeah, well.
And I hear anecdotally, and chat to me afterwards if you want, that the effect on Kirby Stephen wasn't as much as was feared. And there was some traffic counting, I believe, put in by our officers to look at that. So I think the answer, Chair, is keep in touch, be assured that we will do everything we can to try and mitigate this, and to pressure National Highways to help as much as we can. And part of that is making sure it doesn't close, of course. And when you're constructing a major highway, you can keep things open, but it costs a bit more. It's cheaper just to shut things open. And I think we've made the point to them not to take the cheapest way out. Because we've said, you know, if Kirby Stephen comes to a halt, we're going to sell Phil Jewland. You know, and we've all been, you know, we haven't made the point that we are watching them. Thank you.
Can we just come back to it, because I was making the night closure didn't have the impact because it was at night. It's during the day. And can I assure the Councillor Chair that he's on my Christmas card list?
I'm sure that both Councillor Dew and Councillor Murray together, either individually or separate, or individually or combined, will be a force on National Highways with a rectangular grid. Any other questions? I've got Councillor Carrick. Any other questions? No, then Councillor Carrick, please, and then we'll move on.
Thank you. I'm going to anchor my question to page 104, and it's under the development framework and the ambition for the council to support affordable homes. It will become clear why that is a tentative connection, but why necessary to ask the question. So my question is to the leader of the council, and would have been also to the cabinet member for housing and homelessness. And it relates to the process for awarding affordable housing fund grants. So within my ward, the exotically named Egg Packing Station project in Lazenby is a local community initiative which seeks to transform a redundant eyesore of a building, which is right near the centre of the village, into a number of affordable housing units. The parish council, the landowner, developer, a housing association, and officers and members of the former Eden District Council have spent years negotiating and formulating a viable proposal to achieve this much-needed transformation. Final requirement was an affordable housing grant, which was expected to be signed off by Eden District Council earlier this year, before the demise of Eden, but which sadly was deferred. As Westmorland and Furness currently have no policy for awarding this grant funding, this incredibly worthy project is now in potential jeopardy. My concerns, apart from in contributing to the jeopardy, are the costs arising since the original submission was put in. The partners now have been very nervous, so hence the jeopardy. So my question is, could the council leader and the cabinet member for housing and homelessness please give me their assurance that you will use your combined influence to ensure that this application is now progressed as a matter of urgency, and to assist me to support this innovative and exciting development on behalf of the local community.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Carrick. Clearly a matter that is of significant importance to that area, and no doubt to you in particular. So, I mean, the generality, of course, is that as a council we are very much committed to the delivery of affordable housing, and many communities across our area that are blighted by a lack of affordable housing, and so we will endeavour to do all that we can to enable affordable housing delivery, particularly through our partner organisations. Now, I don't happen to know the detail of the specific example that you are making reference to, but generally I would say yes, I'll make the commitment that both myself as leader and working with the relevant housing portfolio holder, that we will endeavour to get up to speed with the details of that particular case, and where it is possible for us to move things along. If that's needed, then we will endeavour to do that. But clearly, the detail I'm not party to, but I'd certainly make that commitment.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, Councillor Furness.
I'm just going to ask questions here. I'm going to ask one of this. It's minute 22, page 25. Halfway down that page, it talks about the allocation to the locality board proposal for local sustainable travel and transport. And it was to be allocated on the basis of 80% population and 20% road use, and the allocation of therefore to sink, which always disadvantages Barrow. And I've got to say that we're the largest town in Cumbria with the least roads, and they're thought heavily used. So we are at a disadvantage the way that this allocation is given out. And all the people are going to say they're not going to change it, but I've got to say, in rural areas there are lots and lots of roads. Lots of them are not used. Lots and lots of roads are not used. So I'm just saying, because people are frowning. But when you live in a town as compact as Barrow, then the roads are very heavily used. We have got any amount also of back alleys which are classed as a highway in some instances and not as a highway as in other instances, and they're not taken into consideration when you're doing this formula. And I know people are saying they're not changing it, but I do think it needs looking at somewhere, because we are quite clearly at a disadvantage on this formula in an area like that. And now going like this, but I can take you to areas where we are at a disadvantage with these roads so heavily used and so proven the same.
Thank you. So, shaped into a question just about. We can get a brief response. A brief response.
Well, the sustainable travel and transport was innovative fund, which we obviously use on a temporary basis to encourage our locality board areas to pioneer schemes of public transport, footways and cycling. And I hear that the Furness area have already begun to use funding, which is great. In terms of the way the formula was worked out, there is no perfect formula. And I'm under the impression that Councillor Jarvis made, which comment, that actually we skewed the formula to be as fair to the Furness area as possible. Because 80% based on population surely is likely to benefit an area of a high density of population rather than the other way around. So I believe that was a just allocation fund. But you know very well if it appeared that all the money was going to one locality, say Furness, for example, or either of the other two, then the other two would have been quite justifiably irritated by that. So as you said, we're not going to change it, but I just hope that uni colleagues in Furness will use this money imaginatively, and it'll vindicate the action the council taken September. But stress again, it's only for a while. It's the end of this financial year. Then we have to review the financial situation of the council finds itself.
Thank you very much. No other hands up for questions. We will bring that item to a close. Thank you everyone for participating. And we'll move then to item 9, which is the Youth Justice Plan. And I'd just like to invite Councillor Sue Sampson, the Current Member for Children's Services and Educational Skills, to present the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. The Youth Justice Plan is a requirement from the Youth Justice Board. It has to state how the Youth Justice Grant is going to be spent to provide the statutory service of managing young people who have come into contact with the criminal justice system. The plan this year reflects the work that the Youth Justice Service completed as a pan-Cumbria service. We now have disaggregated that, so we now have our own Westmorland and Furness Youth Justice Service and the newly created Youth Justice Board, comprising of partners and chaired by the Assistant Director of Children and Families. Cumberland have their own Youth Justice Service, and those have been split now. The plan sets out the future aims and objectives to ensure we have a high-performing service. We've appointed a new service manager called Stefania Tracy, who brings many years' experience and knowledge, and we welcome her to our authority. We've also retained excellent practitioners who work in the area basis, serving their local communities. I would like to thank everyone who has supported this service and who continue to provide the right support, guidance and interventions at the right time for these young people. The recommendation is for full council to approve the plan. It has already been approved by the Youth Justice Board and Cabinet. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sampson. Is there a second for the item, Councillor Bates? Do you wish to speak now or reserve the right?
I rise to second it, and I would like to reserve the right to speak. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you. Yes, I say, do we have anyone who wishes to speak on this item? Councillor Chu?
I just want to make a very brief comment, Chair. As the Chair of the Children, Young People's and Families Scrutiny Committee, I would like to congratulate officers on an excellent and informative report. It always is a kind of a perfect example of how a report should be written and presented. And I think if councillors go to page 55 of the Child First questionnaire, and the responses that came from the young people themselves who are the users of the service, that the answers were wonderfully positive and very encouraging. So This is exemplary, and I think we need to note that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? Councillor McGee.
Yeah, just a quick one. Yeah, thank you, and thanks for the report. I think it's well put together. It's just that one on page 60, I think it is. It's Westmorland Furness, YGS will use point 2, second bullet point down, continue to further a partnership working with the North of Tyne and Weir, provide a psychology and enhanced case management approach. Why, what have we got that we've not got here locally? Why have we got to go to Tyne and Weir? Is there an explanation for that? Well, you're not doing that.
I think it's the actual specialism that they provide, and it will be inherited from the pan-Cumbria approach. It is something that I've also noticed, and I'm going to make inquiries about why it is so special, if that is indeed the reason.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Burns, next.
This is a brief one, and it speaks a little bit to Councillor Dew's point, actually, just that this is a very good report, clearly. And I would just sort of put it in a plea, really, that if we have got a report like this, that is worthy of the attention to full council, could we have it as a standalone, perhaps in advance of the agenda papers, if possible? I know it's not always possible. Just as an example, this is a report that we discussed at a meeting of another authority yesterday, and it was sent out some weeks before the agenda papers. So just gives people, when it is a very comprehensive report, it's really all our attention. It's not just almost running the risk of being overlooked or still thing.
Stuff, we get stuff out as quickly as we can. Yeah, it was only in Cabinet last week. So. Yeah, absolutely. We'll try and get stuff as early as possible to councillors as early as possible. Councillor Carrick, you wish to ask a question?
Thank you. Well, just to demonstrate that I didn't skim through the report, I actually found the table, which is included in paragraph 7.2 on pages 47 and 48, quite confusing. And I found the headings to the columns quite confusing. What I've assumed that the table has told me is that the centre column, if you will, is what the county council funding was for last year, or the when it was a county-wide service, and that the right-hand column relates to the disaggregated service for Westmorland and Furness, which I presume is 23-24 rather than 22-23.
Baseline. 22-23 baseline.
Right. So my question is, not only did I not get the same total for the left-hand column as is included in the paper, which is probably not significant, but my query is, it relates to the Cumbria Constabulary contribution to the service in its totality, which is their contribution appears to have decreased significantly from what it was on the whole county funding. Does that reflect the split, or does that reflect some other component?
What I can say is that, as one of the several councillors here is a member of the Police and Fire and Crime Commissioner panel, I'm more than happy to take that question directly to the directly elected commissioner to ask him about that split.
If I may, just trying to clarify my probably confused thing. When you look at the first column, which is the whole county funding, the constabulary are contributing approximately 9% to the service. When you look at the right-hand column, they're contributing approximately 6%. I just wonder what the difference
is. Thank you for highlighting.
If I may, I think this probably reflects just the complexity of the disaggregation work, where we went through hundreds and hundreds of different allocation keys, depending on the service and the source of funding. So, depending on the specific projects that are being financed, it could well be that 3/4 of that project was was falling in Cumberland and only a quarter in Westmorland and Furness, and so that reflects the split. I mean, we could get officers to double check that, but if you look through hundreds if not thousands of lines that comprise the budget, there are so many different keys. Some things which end up being allocated 100% to one council and 100% or nothing to the other, and vice versa. So it really, it's not just been, it's 55-45. That was the default only in a very minority of cases. And in most cases, it was looking at what were the funding criteria, modelling funding criteria, or looking at projects to be spent, or actually, or most of all, the actual specific expenditure. And so we can look it up, but that's likely to be the reason for that. We can compare that to the officers.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak on this answer? And then we'll move to Kendal to speak as second.
Thank you. I wanted to speak on this because over my years in social work, I've had quite often involvement with youth justice services in its various guises, going back to when council typically had one specialist worker who was called the delinquency worker. And it's come a long way. It's gone through youth justice, youth offending. And I must say, I'm really pleased to see that we have a youth justice service because it's about caring for children and young people first. And that's echoed in the, as it were, in the strapline of this, which is about child first, offender second. As I think colleagues have picked up, partnership's really important in this. And the board comprises, as you see, a number of different representatives from different organisations. And when you talk about funding, one of the things I'm not clear about is what's included in the actual, as it were, pounds and pence. Because besides making a financial contribution, other agencies, and that's typically police, probation and health, provide second staff into it. And it's part of the strength of the Youth Justice Service is that it's not only a partnership at board level, but it's a partnership at worker level, which means that these very troubled young people and their families should be getting the best of all worlds, because our job is to help them through whatever has been happening to them. And as you also see, the priorities for this year is about effective intervention, and that's about doing our best to help young people stop and put it right, reduce reoffending, and that's hopefully about helping young people never to need to do it again and improving the outcomes, and that's about getting the best for them with their families. And if you look at the range of workers, you'll see that it's very skilled, and in my personal experience, I know there will be expert, experienced workers helping young people and their families through it. We did talk about it as Councillor Dewar said. We did look at this and we had a really interesting presentation at the scrutiny committee. So these documents have been around for some time, but I take the point about the value of it being distributed beforehand. So it's not just lost in the thick wad of papers or in a very long email, but gives us a chance to think about it. There are 2 or 3 elements of this report that are really, as I think people have highlighted, are really worth looking at. The comments from young people to see that there's a neat little, what do you call it, pictogram or something that describes what the service does. Sorry, I've just flicked a paperclip. Not the least of which, like many technical areas, there's all sorts of acronyms. And one of the comments I made at scrutiny was that I was pleased to see that there's a detailed description of what each of the acronyms mean. So it's a great pleasure that I commend this. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll move now to the vote on this motion. So can I ask for all those in favour to please indicate? Looks to be unanimous. Just to check, does anyone like to vote against or wish to abstain? Thank you, members. That motion is carried. Item 10 is the Westmorland Furness Council Plan Delivery Framework. And so I invite Councillor Brooke to present the report.
Thank you. Yes, it's on page 85 of our papers today. One recommendation before us that the Council approve Westmorland Furness Delivery Framework, and that is attached to the papers, Appendix 1. What I would just like to say is that actually I'm delighted to be able to introduce our new Council Plan Delivery Framework this afternoon. Document builds on our previously published and very first Council Plan. And in that Council Plan, we set out our overall priorities and ambitions with a vision of making Westmorland Furness a truly great place to live, work and thrive for every one of our citizens. The delivery framework therefore builds on that foundation that has been set by the Council Plan, and it sets out bold missions across 10 different themes: housing and transport, culture and the environment, and it explains how we will succeed in those missions and details the actions that we'll be taking, particularly in the first year. We felt that that was important, that we should do that to provide that level of detail. For example, the launching of our Climate Change Action Plan, delivering Levelling Up programmes, establishing locality boards and tackling the housing crisis, and we've touched on a number of those items already in our agenda today. And therefore, to anyone who is unsure about what this council, Westmorland Furness, is about, the framework provides, I believe, a clear, compelling picture of the scale of our ambition for our area, for our communities and for the services that we deliver. We know that achieving everything that we want won't be easy, and again, as has already been made reference to in response to a question earlier in respect of collaboration, we recognise that collaboration with our partners and our communities will be absolutely critical to the delivery and the successful outcome for this framework. And I want to reiterate that we are committed to the principle of working very much in collaboration with our various partners, whoever they may be. So this is not a document that is going to lie around gathering dust. It will be, perhaps you might call it a touchstone, and we will be focused on action and delivery with regular reviews and measures developed to track our progress towards our goals. And again, that is largely an important part of the process. So once again, in closing, I'd like to offer my thanks to officers, to Cabinet member colleagues, to other members here today for their work in getting us to this point. And the document does make reference to the consultation that has gone on in getting us this far. This section 5 talks about the way in which the delivery framework has been discussed with various of our stakeholders, the 3 locality boards and overview and scrutiny. And therefore, I hope that having gone through that process, that today really will be a formality in agreeing with me to that recommendation, which I'm very happy to propose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there a seconder for the motion? Councillor Brooke. Did you wish to speak now?
I do wish to speak, because I've actually read it, so I thought I might as well. And I must say, when I did read it, one of the first things that struck me was that there was a picture of Sam, who was our chief executive on Barrow Borough Council before this, and it reminded me of a plan that we wrote in 2020, was it? And then as soon as we agreed it, we had COVID, and then we had LGR, so we never kind of implemented it all. But I'm hopeful that it will not happen again, and that we will actually do this, because like I said, there's a lot of consultation, there's lots of stuff in here that's really positive about our community. It's not all just about roads, sorry, Peter. It's actually got stuff in like about the people and all that kind of stuff that lives around here. And I was obviously personally especially pleased to see that we're going to have enjoy high quality cultural experiences, which I assume is a reference to getting
a stadium in Barrow where we can have Jubilee Broad and stuff like that. So I think our group, I mean, we've all been part of this. There's no point going over each page on it. We just want to get it delivered, and all the stuff on the right-hand column that says what success looks like. If we can deliver all that, that'll be great. And I'm just hoping that Jonathan doesn't come on telly one day and say, I'm deferred it for 5 years.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Is there anyone who'd like to speak on this item, please? We've got Councillor Phillips.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for the framework that we've got to set forward to get a full plan, which we will deliver as outlined in the previous council plan. Whilst outlining what we can do, one thing that it doesn't mention is the local government reform process that we've been through and potential opportunities that we should be looking to identify as we go through that. So can the leader identify what in this framework is being to harness the opportunity of local government reform and how we will get benefit of this to residents? And have we established as yet any mechanisms for capturing these benefits in the wider reform planning framework which is due to come? And will there be additional opportunities to look at further devolution from central government following the process of local government?
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the question. And yes, so this is a document clearly that is focused on our delivery plan framework, what we intend to do. It doesn't encompass everything, and a lot of the transformation programme that we will also be working up in detail will of necessity need to be in the medium to longer term. So we will be very much focused on that. Clearly, being a unitary council does provide us with opportunities, and we very much intend to take those. And again, I think some of that may well come forward as perhaps part of our budget process, because clearly there are budget pressures, and we are going to have to change significantly the way in which we deliver services. So all of those things, I think, will become clear in various documents over the course of the short to medium term. But as again, this is focused on our delivery plan framework. And as I said, I think it was important that we did specify what we were intending to do in year one. Hopefully, more clarity will be forthcoming.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morgan.
Thank you. I think like Councillor Batty and Councillor Dew, I'd like to talk about scrutiny of the development framework. The corporate overview and scrutiny were consulted at a very early stage of the delivery framework development process back at the start of June. And our discussion focused on the process of transformation and change, how we would achieve the delivery framework, how the building blocks fit together, the outcomes we wanted to achieve, and how we, our residents, communities and partners could all have a shared understanding of the purpose of the delivery framework. And I would say in June it's much more complicated than what we see today. It was important to us that everybody understood it, that I could take it out and a resident in my ward would understand that delivery framework. And I think following our scrutiny, all members, everybody in here, through their locality boards, have the opportunity to contribute and share their views. And the delivery framework continued to be refined right throughout this consultation process. So I'm pleased that the current and final version of the delivery framework presented today has taken our views into account. That it builds on the council plan and sets the strategic direction for council delivery, and that it clearly articulates what we as a council will do to support our communities. Screening were engaged as a positive part of the development process of the delivery framework from the outset, rather than in the final stages. And I hope that this model of early scrutiny engagement continues in future strategy and policy development as an important means to influence decisions and to improve them. Scrutiny councillors bring a different perspective to the decision-making process than that provided by cabinet members and officers,
which can help the decisions to be more robust. And in this case, I believe the delivery framework is more robust because of our involvement.
Thank you very much indeed. Councillor Jude.
Thank you, Chair. I'll begin again by complimenting the officer who headed up this particular consultation exercise, Alison Hatcher. I mean, it was a huge amount of work to try and bring together into a single report, and I think she's done a fantastic job. I know she's had the support of quite a lot of other outside agencies and officers within the council, but I know she's sweated over this, if I can say that. But I think it's been worthwhile and it's a very useful report. I just wanted to just mention one concern that I have. It's on page 106, which is the boundaries of communities. And under our context, halfway down that first page, it says we want to work with communities involving power and responsibility where it makes sense. And I know this is one of the key strategies and flagship ways of working with this council, but I just wanted to add, and I think we should be adding, a warning notice to this, because the devolution of power and responsibility does bring with it more work and more expense. As communities discovered to their chagrin with the devolved lighting, footway, the street lighting policy of some of our councils, that is quite an expensive exercise and undertaking. So I'm concerned that the devolution process could be used as a means of offloading council responsibilities onto ill-prepared parishes, that's ill-prepared in their capacity with personnel and also with finance, unless those devolved powers and responsibilities had finance attached to them. And I have heard the talk, well, if parishes and towns want to do certain things, well, then they just put up the precept again and again. So I just want reassurance from the leader that that will not be used as a way of offloading responsibilities, which, in essence, are with the Westmorland and Furness Council rather than individual parish and town councils. Thank you.
And I'll let you have provided you can reply in the round to everyone's comments at the end if you like, or if you prefer you can handle points as they're raised.
If I may answer the points here, then my memory isn't stretched beyond endurance trying to hold all of that. So yeah, I mean, I think this is carefully worded. So we want to work with communities to address these issues, devolving power and responsibility where it makes sense, as you quoted there. So I think there is a balance, clearly, and some things are able to be devolved, and it's right that they should be, empowering communities, whereas there are other things that clearly, if we are to function as an efficient and effective council, some decisions do need to be made at the core. So that is the balance, and clearly this process is very much in play. So we will be working with our locality boards to see how we shape that process, and I suspect it may well be different for different locality boards. So we are open to that flexibility. You quite rightly indicate that that approach may well involve some additional cost, and we will again have to balance that out over the course of time. So I think in terms of then, yes, you were asking about possibility of this council offloading responsibilities to the lower tier parish and town councils, and over the period of shadow council and thus far as part of the life of this council, I have tried to get out and about to a number of parishes wherever possible, and I've spoken several. I've also been involved with meetings of CALC, and at those meetings I've been very clear with the parish councils that a one-size-fits-all approach of Westmorland and Furness devolving powers to or services or assets to parish and town councils is not the approach that we would see. We would see for parish and town councils to be coming to us asking us what greater involvement they might have, how they might deliver services better than perhaps we can as the unitary authority. So that's the type of engagement that I'm looking forward to, rather than us as an authority simply offloading responsibility and cost to parish and town council. So I hope that's clear.
Yeah, that's very reassuring.
Thank you. Councillor Burns.
Thank you. It's very good choice, but I would have been tempted to say to Councillor Dew, we're learning from the masters about offloading things from some about the responsibility without the funding. But we're not planning to do that. We're not planning to do that. We're planning to work together throughout the communities. But I just want to pick up on this because I think, as other people have said, it's a really well thought out, well presented document. It's something I think all of us would want to get behind and work with. I want to pick up the bit about housing. It's on page 686, where it says everyone can live in a place where they call home, one which is affordable, clean, safe and warm. Well, you know, some people in our communities don't have that happening to them. So I really welcome the bit about homes here and about how we actually talk about a decent home is the cornerstone of a good life, because it is. And that's what we want to all achieve within our communities. We've got families that are not living in those sorts of conditions. We've got families that are living in damp, mouldy, really, really bad conditions. And so whatever we can do, and I've never had that opportunity of working on a council where it's had that housing responsibility, and it has now. And it's really good to see, because we can actually work right across the board. We know from birth to old that you need to have that good, decent home to lay down your roofs and have that standard, and we want to all achieve that. I'm really pleased that, Jonathan, you talked about working with locality boards, because I'd love to see, I know we're producing a housing strategy over the next year to work towards a plan for the future. I'd love to see something in that strategy that talks about social enterprise, that talks about social housing, that talks about how we can all get together and work to make sure that we're working together to get the social housing up and running. That's where I think this got to have the big tick box for all of us. We live in a community here with very, very different needs. Our needs are very different to the needs in some of the areas that we've got, but all of us have got the needs for decent homes and decent standards. So really good to see that piece there. I'd like to say that if we can have some of that work at a locality level to actually help with that housing strategy, the strategy going forward, I'm sure we would welcome that. Certainly our locality board would really welcome the chance to actually put some meat on the bones that we've got here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does anyone else wish to speak on this item? So, Councillor Carrick first.
Thank you. Yeah, I welcome the framework as well. I think it is a very good document. You can see the amount of work that's gone into it, and I think it reflects it. I particularly like what we aim to deliver this year. I think that's a really clear message. It's not somewhere the whole of the plan. You know, there is a clearly defined ambition within the first year of the 5-year cycle. However, there's always that however, isn't there? What I think you now need to provide absolute transparency is the accompanying performance management framework, which will then contain measures and indicators that will allow councils to progress in delivering those priorities to the moment.
Thank you. Councillor McHugh.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I welcome this report. I think it's been well put together, and it's something that we need to go forward. I just want to echo Councillor Bunce's report on the homes. I was going to ask if they might just say, our standard homes in Barrow, with social housing, is very good. It's up to standard, it's absolutely spot on, and one may continue. But I've just been working with a young lady who's rented private property, and this is the worst place to go, because some of these rented properties from the private sector are terrible for damp. This young girl has got dampness, and I took it to, it's getting sorted at the present time. But this particular housing place is covering it up with cladding, with plastic cladding in the living rooms and just covering over the damping. So this is something that we've got to get on top of. Not the social housing part, which the houses are getting really looked after, it's the private landlords that we've got. Not them all, don't get me wrong, some of them are just split by the by, and it's a thing with this dampness and mould at the moment, so thank you.
moved into.
Thank you, Councillor. Is anyone else wishing to speak on this item at all? Oh, Councillor Dix.
Sorry, sir, could I just have clarification? Maybe it doesn't need to be real clarification. But on the subject of homes, I did notice, I've just lost the page. It said that there were 6,000 families on the waiting list. Can somebody just confirm that that's the total within Westmorland and Furness? Because I was always under the impression, when I was involved in South Lakes housing, that there were 6,000 on the waiting list in South Lake. So does 6,000 cover the whole of our new authority? Thank you.
Thank you. I don't know if there's, we might have to clarify. We can clarify that in writing, Councillor Dixon. I think. Has anyone else wishing to speak on this item? Okay. Well, I guess thank you for your contributions, and we can move therefore to the vote. So can I ask all those in favour, please, to indicate? I'll just make sure. Did anyone wish to abstain? Did anyone wish to vote against? No, that's passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Members, are we amenable to a 5-minute comfort break at this stage before we resume the meeting? Is that okay? So we will reconvene in 5 minutes' time.